Even on a dismal winter's day, King's Cliffe looks the idyllic picture postcard English village. Its timeless quality has attracted the smart set. By train, London's just an hour away. Yet, for all its old world charm, King's Cliffe has a neighbour that some would rather be without. This corner of the East Midlands could soon be the first landfill site in Britain to dump radioactive waste from the country's decommissioned nuclear power stations.
When the proposals were first put forward, there was a lot of surprise and alarm, and we've had a few public meetings in the village.
Petitions have been organised. Some residents have undergone a crash course in nuclear science.
We've been doing our research, as just community people doing our research, and we've found that, low level doesn't mean safe, Zero radiation is safe.
Low-level nuclear waste will be heading to this landfill waste site just outside the village if proposals from the operators, Augean, are approved by local planners and the Environment Agency.
It basically involves the construction demolition material, which has become slightly contaminated. There are ancillary buildings and facilities from the decommissioning stations.
The Politics Show was given access to visit the site. It used to be a clay quarry. Now it contains asbestos and contaminated soils from the sites of the London Olympics and the Dome.
This site has a particularly high quality clay, and the engineering here is 18 times the level of protection that you might get at a normal domestic landfill site.
If approved, low-level radioactive waste, building rubble from Britain's decommissioned nuclear power plants would end up here. In the site's research labs, scientists test some of the hazardous toxic materials already being handled by Augean before burial. But what about the risks from nuclear waste and those concerns in the village?
They have got concerns, and we're continuing to explain the proposals. And fundamentally, the key point is that the level of radiation that will be generated, therefore exposure, is less than 1% of what they're naturally exposed to every day.
So it's safe.
So it's safe.
But that reassurance doesn't necessarily answer all the concerns of local politicians.
We don't actually have any sites that are due to be decommissioned anywhere near here. So it's the distances that it'll be coming from, how it's going to be transported. We don't have a railway line anywhere near here. So if it's all being transported by road, is that the right thing to be done? I think it'll be difficult to reassure the local residents on the safety of this material going into the site.
And the issue is a particular dilemma for the local MP, Phil Hope, not only Minister for the East Midlands, but also a Minister for Health.
It's the bricks from the outhouses of these nuclear power stations. It's things like surgical gloves that are used in hospitals that get radioactive because of people being given radioactive treatments of one kind or another. This is the sort of low-level waste that they're talking about here. Where does it go? Well, that's a matter for the local planning authorities, and I want to make sure my constituents have their voice heard in those planning decisions, and that this is done openly and transparently, that the facts are understood, that the myths are dispelled, and that the local authority makes the right decision.
A generation ago, there were similar concerns. Fulbeck in Lincolnshire was one of several sites identified by NIREX, a government nuclear agency, to dispose of radioactive waste. The scale of opposition forced the then Thatcher government to abandon the idea. Today, such waste is buried in a concrete-lined repository in Cumbria.
If you compare that to what they're trying to do up the road, and if this goes ahead around the country, it's a million miles apart. We consider this, because we're probably one of the first sites to be taking this stuff in the country, we consider this to be a test case for the national situation. The point about safety is undertaking risk assessments. We've undertaken risk assessments for all credible scenarios for the facility, and in all cases, the risk assessments show that the site, the impact will be negligible.
Neighbouring areas are also being consulted. Rutland said yes, Peterborough said no. Local planners in Northamptonshire have already delayed taking a decision. That's now expected next spring, just before the start of a general election campaign.